So the first thing I'm going to ask, Graham, and this is like the most important question, is for you to tell me a little bit about what it takes to maintain that beard of yours. This is KHEMunicate, a monthly story-driven podcast, and I'm David Schmeichel, your guide into the realm of the minds of brilliant individuals that are ready to be heard and waiting for your attention. And today, we dig in with Graham Matheos, lover of beer, bikes, and business. Graham decided to take up a challenge that changed his life for the better and likely forever. So let's start the podcast off with you introducing yourself. Who are you? And who's the audience going to be hearing from today?
Sure, Dave, it's great to be here. My name's Graham Matheos. I'm the teetotaling founder of One for the Road Brewing. Myself and a partner started One for the Road about 5 years ago. After years of thinking about it and pondering it, I finally got somebody on board. My wife was sick of hearing about my idea, and when I found a partner, it was a great opportunity to actually go forth and start it. So it started as just an idea. I had stopped drinking way back in 2006, I guess, and I only remember that because it was the year my youngest was born. And I did it because somebody in my life needed to quit drinking. So I said, well, I'll quit drinking with you for a year. And as that year went on, I realized a few things. I realized that life can go on, and that you can still be the idiot with the lampshade on your head at the party, even though you're sober. And I found out how difficult it was for those people who actually need to quit drinking to do it, and how ingrained alcohol is into our culture. And when the year was up, I was going to go back to drinking, or that was the plan the whole time way through. And then as I kind of weighed the pros and the cons, and I had lost weight. I wasn't, didn't fight with my wife every other weekend. I didn't have hangovers trying to deal with my young kids at the time. It was just a good life change for me. So I'd always had a good relationship with alcohol, but it was I realized that it was a lifestyle change that was a positive one over that year. So I never went back, but really missed beer and good beer, and watching the craft beer industry explode over the next decade while I was stuck drinking O'Doul's. I decided that there's got to be a better way and some better options out there for people. And I also realized the more that you say to people or tell people that you don't drink, they catch you drinking a non-alcoholic beer at a party or whatever, they go two ways. Either they distance themselves from you, or they tell you about their experience, whether it be their family member or their own family member with issues with alcoholism and stuff. And I was like, well, it's not really where I am or where my story got there, but I realized that the community of people that saw value in not drinking is huge. So that's where I went from, okay, well, let's produce something for my own sake so that I can have a good craft beer. And then if I sell it in a few places, that'll be kind of a cool little thing, right? And that quickly exploded to realizing the size of the market and the industry, and it going from a little side idea and a one-time little brew to a full business and a full-time job.
Yeah, amazing. We'll dig into some of the specifics about what you talked about a little bit later. So thank you for the intro, and I want to get a deeper sense of who you are. You talk about a few things that are defining attributes for you, Graham. One of the things being the more you give, the more you get. And we've heard this before. Do you think it's getting harder for people to give? And maybe what are some of the traps of giving because of that notion, well, I should give because then I'm going to get? What are your thoughts on that?
Um, no, I don't think it's harder for people to give. I think the more you look around, the more giving there is. Like I think and it's not money or gifts or whatever, but it's time or it's just giving of themselves within relationships or whatever. I think there's a ton of giving that goes on, right? Um, and I don't think that I think the vast majority of that giving is not done with the premise in mind of the more I give, the more I'll get. I think it's truly just giving. And I think by doing that, what you give and what is the result of that giving is what you get. Like it's not something coming back to you. You're creating it by giving it,
Yeah.
right? The more time that I spend coaching is a big part of my life, coaching kids. And the more time that I spend doing that results in the relationships and the experiences that I have. And that is the gift. That is what I get, right? So you create it by giving.
Yeah. Do you, I feel like it's an automatic thing for many, and then there are some that are a bit paralyzed by that, uh, because the story is that I don't have anything to give, or they're dealing with a lot, and they feel like they've been giving way too much, and the reciprocity then in kind for themselves isn't there. What would you say to those people? Because there are those that are really dealing with that and need a bit of a reminder.
Hmm. I don't know. I don't know. And again, I think there's probably people in places in their lives when what they need is to receive, and what they need is help, right? Or what they need is understanding, or what they need is something from somebody else. But the only way you're going to find that is to reach out. It's a very fortuitous time for this conversation in question. I don't know if I was prepared for it, but I thought of a friend today, and I sent something to him, and he called me immediately, and he told me about what's going on in his life, which I didn't know, and his wife actually just recently left him, and he was kind of shocked by that and wasn't aware of it, wasn't, and so him, he's not giving anything, he's reaching out, but he had to he had to reach out to get it, like he had to, you know what I mean? Um, and I think that's so he's in a situation where he needs that, whether it's affirmations or whether it's understanding or whether that's an ear to talk to or whether that's a shoulder to cry on or whatever. Um, but you kind of have to reach out to get
Yeah,
it,
agreed.
right? Um, yeah, I'm not going to know that's happening to him. As far as I knew, everything was great with him. I haven't chatted with him in a couple months, and everything was great. Everything was awesome.
It's
Um,
funny how you
so
go, I don't know, but then have exactly the answer to that question, right? That it
yeah, I guess
it
yeah.
really is, because I echo what you're saying there. It really is the intention of putting yourself out there, um, maybe not necessarily asking for help, but just reaching out, right? Because in the reach
Yeah.
out, and I wrote about this recently, there is a pass for meaningful connection. What tends to happen is the pass gets caught and set down because we're dealing with life in our own situation, right? It's all important, or it gets missed entirely because we didn't even notice it. And so the mindfulness now to really pay attention to when the pass for meaningful connection has been sent, to catch it, like you did. You answered the call. You created space. You allowed for the conversation that needed to happen. You also mentioned about having what you truly want in life versus the distinction of title and net worth and the typical corporate game, right?
Mhm.
It's it's an I'm going to say this with a measure of uh, it's easy, not easy to say that, right? to have what you truly want in life? How do you know? How did you know what you really wanted in your life?
Um, you know, I guess it's just through actually thinking about it and considering it and having discussions. But um, years ago, I had a conversation with a friend of mine who's like a business coach at the time, right? And he started talking about these groups that he works with and helping them find success and helping them find this and that. And it was all directed around business and just business. And I'm like, dude, what's success? Like, what is success to you? And he's like, kind of was set back by that question. But I said, like, everybody has their own measure of success. And for some, it might be in the title, and for some, it might be in the things you have, and in some, it might be in relationships, or some, it might be just your freedoms to do what you want to do. And I think everybody has their own understanding of what success is, right? Um, and for me, it's just being able to have, you know, a plethora of things in my life that I value. And there's probably a financial line that you have to get to, like a bar that you have to get to, right? You have to have, you know, a roof over your head and food and the opportunity to provide to yourself and your family what they want to do, right? Whether, you know, so there's a certain level of that, but it's like, for me, it's not the size of that house or the type of car that I drive or whatever. It's time and it's experiences and um, it's opportunity to do the things that I value and that I want to do. So
Did
yeah, I
you
don't know. I
always
think it
know
was just a matter.
that those were the things for you?
Probably. I've never from you know, I've never wanted. I've never been without. Right? Like I've never missed a meal. I've never worried about, um, you know, where I was or where my family was financially. Like we were, you know what I mean? Like, so I guess that goes back to a good childhood that I had. You know, I never had those worries or those considerations. So, but it was never like a strive to be rich to have something bigger or greater. It was like I just want, um, I want a life where I can have time to do whatever I want to
Mm-hmm.
do. I think I always knew that. And I remember, and in fact, I remember I'm a physiotherapist by trade, right? So I remember being in an interview to get into physio school, and somehow one of the questions had to do with the having reasonable expectations and you know, like physios don't get paid like doctors or whatever, right? And I was like, yeah, it's not really what I'm here for, right? I'm here to do a job that I love doing, to be able to give back, that I can, be proud of and make a good living. But there's like I understand, like I'm not here to make a massive pile of money. That's not what really I'm here for. So I probably even knew it back then. But then then you have kids and you really understand the value of time, and you see how quickly it goes by, and then your goal, and then my goal just became, you know, how can I create an environment where I get to do that, I get to spend that time with those kids all the time, right? Until they don't want to anymore, right? But yeah, I think to some extent I always knew, and it was never. But it's so easy for me to say because I've never, you know, I mean, I've never sat and worried about where my next meal's coming
Yeah.
from. So
What
I've never been there.
what
Yeah.
do you think? You speak to yourself as someone who is generally happy. What do you think it is, or what do you think it takes to be happy?
Um, I've always, from a from a strictly financial perspective, I've always kind of said, and the, the lesson to my kids has always been to live below your means, um, and so to have the expectation that you're going to live below your means, and then you're always going to be able to, be comfortable with where you are. But I think it's the same with when you talk about happiness. It's not the financial side, but it's a really appreciate what you have, and then and then and then you're always happy because you understand what you have and the opportunities that you have, and you take good advantage of the opportunities that you have, and so you're always reflecting on those positively, and you're happy. I
Hmm.
don't know.
No, I think that's good sound advice.
I didn't know this was
Hey,
going to go here.
we
I don't think I was
we
prepared for
it's
this.
all good, and you'll never know how the conversation truly goes. It's all good, but this is perfect because what you're talking about just reinforces more of what you had shared with me inside the initial questionnaire. And one of those things being that, yeah, and you're going to love where this goes, I think. We'll see how it goes. So you are someone who stays, you're a yes person, someone who stays in your lane, is able to distinguish that, and you double down on your strengths. Okay, so there's three elements that I kind of want to play around with. So you're a yes person. Do you play video games?
I don't.
Do you like Trudeau?
Parts.
Well, what does it mean to be a yes person exactly? I'm being facetious there with the questions because obviously you're not a yes person for everything, and maybe a half yes, half no for some things.
No, I think it's more with like if somebody says to me, if the conversation starts with "Do you want to?" I'll typically say yes before I even know what they're talking about, right? And somebody laughed at me the other day because there was a group around, and a guy said, "Hey, do you want to go biking tomorrow?" But before he said biking tomorrow, I was like, "Yep,"
Yeah, right.
you know. So it was like a I try to I try to make hmm, I try to say yes and create opportunity with those people that I want to spend time with and with those things that I want to do, right? If it's somebody that I'm not a big fan of and they're like, "Do you want to go golfing tomorrow?" then I'll say no because A, I'm not a real big fan of yours, and B, golfing's like 20th on my list of things I want to
Right.
do, right? So so yeah, but I think within the scope of people that I like or love or care about or enjoy and like spending time with, it's like I'm going to try to make opportunities happen as often as I can, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And it's a different thing now because it's a yes for the right reasons because you know what those reasons are, as opposed
Yeah.
to just blindly accepting. And I think this then segues well into that staying in your lane to know what that actually is for you. The the work to do to know what it is that are your strengths and to know what lanes to stay in, and where I think many have a tendency to lean towards for no other reason other than to like save face or create an impression, potentially a false impression that they are somebody that they're not, in the interest of having somebody else like them more or be liked, that we're not staying in our lanes. What does it take, do you think, to stay in our lane and to double down on our strengths?
Hmm. I I think probably the biggest thing is that it requires you to be humble in your weaknesses. I think more than anything, right? Because we all have strengths. But if you're scared to acknowledge where you're weak, then you try to do more of what aren't your strengths, right? But and we all have our egos, and we all have our scenarios where we try to probably do more in scenarios than we should or could or or get I guess get out of your lane, to use the same thing. But um, yeah, I don't know. I think it's okay. It's okay to have weaknesses. Not It's okay to not be good at a certain area and have somebody else do it. It's okay to be, to open up and say I'm not good at whatever, I need help at this, right? Like, and whether that's at work, and like I'm not a good bookkeeper, so finally I had to go get a bookkeeper because I sucked at it, right? Or whether it's at relationships and be like, I'm not a great communicator in this. You're gonna have to help pull me through, right? And to be able to be open with that, and I think that's gonna help, um, help you find success in all those different areas because somebody understands it. Or if you're willing to say you're shitty at something, and I need help doing it, people are gonna give you help. There's good people out there. They're going to give you help for sure, right? At work, you have to pay them. At home, you have to
Yeah,
ask.
totally. Some of the weaknesses that you mentioned about yourself is not finishing everything that you do, taking on too much. And I particularly like this one, judges early and holds grudges. So what do you think not finishing things is a byproduct of?
Ooh, it's probably, you know, so my wife laughed because I told her my answer to this question. I'm most of this I forget what I wrote down, but I remember reading this to my wife, and she's like, "Yeah, you pretty much nailed it." Because most home projects are like 90% finished, but it's like they're yeah, like, I know I gotta put some putty fill in some baseboards and there's whatever, but it looks fine, and I would rather go do
Right.
something else than spend another 3 hours doing that. It's like the baseboards are on, they look good enough, it's fine, right? Um, and luckily, she's for the most part okay with that and appreciates my rationale for not finishing that is to go do something else that I enjoy. So she gets that, so it's good. So that's probably it more than anything. It's just I kind of get to a point where it's good enough, right? And now that's not with everything, um, but that's they. I think the projects and how complete they get are relative to how much I value
Yeah,
them,
totally. I really
right?
echo that. There
Yeah,
is a necessity to do the things that are important to do, like mowing the lawn. And is
yeah,
mine perfectly groomed and ready to go into the competition with the neighborhoods? Nope. Do I care enough? I care enough that it's green and that I can get through it, right? Like I don't have to wait. I don't
yes,
get lost in my yard. Okay, that's a good
right,
enough benchmark. But there are the things, to your point, that I want to spend more time on, and so the opportunity for us is to pick our battles, pick our lanes, double down on
yeah,
our strengths. There are people out there that love to have the care and attention and that those very specific things that have baseboards, let's say, look really good.
yeah.
And that's great. And if they're affordable, maybe you'll hire them to do your baseboards. Otherwise, it's like, just give me space to do the things that I really want to do.
Totally. And I think everybody values different things, right? Like somebody that would drive crazy and they would have to finish it. And I get that. So go do it. But I'd rather go on a bike ride
Right.
all day, right? So yeah, they're on, the grass is cut. Like I get it. I should probably get the weed whacker out and trim, but I'll do it every second or
Totally.
third time. That's good enough, right? I get there's some weeds. I'll get to it. It's green. You can barely tell from far away, right? Like I'll get to it
100%.
eventually. Yeah.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the grudges and the judging. I think this is just a fundamental element that has every human being. It's at the source of every human being. What is it from your perspective? Like there's a good and a bad to it. I think sometimes we don't know why we take the action, create the opinion in the moment, and sometimes we do. But maybe you could speak a little bit to it. This notion of judgment and then like holding certain people at bay for certain reasons, the grudges, nothing like a good grudge. And I say that cheekily, but yeah, speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that ugh, I I guess it just comes back to, um, uh, I guess it just comes back to my values, because people that I know and respect and value and appreciate, I think they know it. And they know it because they get my time, right? And it's just more of a, if you've shown yourself to not be the person that shares my values, then I just don't have time for you. And I just don't, and I'm not going to pretend, and I'm not going to, you know what I mean? And and sometimes I come to that judgment really early. And I have to, and then one thing I have to do is I have to give, there has to be a little more leeway. You never know what was going on in that person's day, that day you met them, or whatever else, right? And I think there's got to be that opportunity. And people have surprised me, and I've been wrong in that initial judgment in the past, and kind of held it against them maybe for months or years on end.
Unintentionally.
And finally, you're kind of like, he's not a bad guy, you know, like he really isn't. But that first initial experience that I had with him was not good, right? And so, and I decided right then, I'm not going to like that person. I'm not going to give them time, and I'm not going to be rude to them or tell them where to go. I just don't have time for them, right? And,
it's a bit of a defense mechanism, maybe, if you think about it, and it's one that we get to be more intentional with. Yes, there's a reaction. Why is there a reaction? What is it about what just happened that has me be that way with that person? And I believe that's it's the gateway to a better understanding of oneself, as opposed to it just being, I just don't like them. Well, but why don't you like them? Well, I just don't. Like, well, there's work to do there to really know what is uncompromising for you as an individual that might have went up against, right? It started to conflict against some of those important things for you. And unless you know them, you can really feel like nobody gets you, that there's that there is nobody out there for me, and so starting to check out a little bit when it comes to connecting with other people, or whatever the story might be for you. So it's interesting, right? The judgment and the grudges are a bit of a survival mechanism, a calibration for what it is that really excites us and lights us up, the type of people that we are looking for, that we want to be around, as opposed to just collapsing it as like so absolute in that moment without any rhyme or reason.
Yeah, time is precious, and you don't have as much of it as you think you do, right? I remember a friend of mine saying something to the effect of like, "Oh, have you connected with so and so from high school on Facebook?" And I'm like, I didn't like them then. Why would I? And I don't have enough time for my friends now, and my, you know, the people that I really want to spend time with now. Why would I go looking and searching for people that I didn't connect with back then? Like, it's the weirdest thing to me. And I think part of that is it. You only have so much time and so much opportunity that I think, so those that I want to spend time with, and I mean, certainly there's people that I would love to spend time with, you just don't get the opportunity to as well, and that makes it that much more precious when you
Absolutely.
Get to it, right? You got to value that, and there are people in my life that I didn't spend enough time with that I no longer can, and I certainly wish I would have. So I want to try to avoid that mistake.
Yeah, really great. So we're going to shift a little bit now into your career, the work that you've been doing for the last 24 years as a physiotherapist. Tell us a little bit about your career as a physiotherapist, the highlights, if you will, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, being a physio has been great, and it's a really good industry to be in. It's this perfect little spot of being able to help people, being able to be a bit of an expert in your field. Generally speaking, people's lives are not in danger when you're doing your job. So the responsibility level is a nice, comfortable place for me. I always, I always laugh, well, it's a good thing we're not doing surgery here, because this treatment didn't go so well, but I didn't kill you, so that's good, right? Like, and for the most part, you help people and don't hurt people. But no, it's been a great, and to really build a rapport with people, it's a fun thing to do as well. Like I've built a lot of good relationships with patients through the years, and I don't practice physio a ton anymore. It's kind of like you need my cell phone number to actually see
Right.
me, but I own a clinic by myself, and then I have a partner in another clinic, and so it's a nice thing to even just facilitate the community and be able to help people. That's a nice little aside, and it's been a great business.
And why did you decide to change things up?
So I guess it was when we first. I'm actually talking to you from Invermere, from our cabin, but it was when we first bought our cabin in 2006. A lot happened in 2006, but we came out here for a few weeks, young family, and it was like, oh, how could we spend more time here? Like we had a couple weeks of holidays, and how can we do a little bit more of this? So I made plans the next summer to come and work at a physio clinic here, and so we could spend more time here. I'm leaving my clinic in Calgary, so I brought somebody on to do my physio work. I did a little more leaning on my office manager to take on certain roles. I went back and forth to help them, but for the most part, they took on some roles, and I kind of stepped away from the operations a bit for that 2-month period. And then I was scared financially of not being able to afford taking 2 months off, so I worked while I was here, which was great. It was an awesome opportunity for our family. So I went back in September, and I realized, oh yeah, that physio clinic doesn't really need me. I wasn't quite as necessary as I thought I was. It kept going, it kept operating, it kept generating a profit. So then I went, well, why would I take back those roles from my office manager, and why would I jump back in and take the role of that physio? So it was an opportunity to actually build that company that I didn't expect, right? So now all of a sudden I got another physio in. Well, I'm going to keep them. They're great. It's awesome. And I'm going to do a little bit myself, and I'm going to do a bit here. But now all of a sudden I've have more opportunity to build the business as opposed to working in the business.
Do you think
right?
there's a few variables that had it go that way? That when you look back, it's like, oh, because I put these things in place, I was actually able to be in the position that I'm at now to look at it differently, your business.
Yeah, well, I think looking at it differently and trying to find an opportunity to be a bit more passive in the business was the result. And then when it went well, like had I gone back and the business had gone and not done well, then I probably just would have jumped back in and been that full-time physio and full-time owner, right?
Do you know what it is that
But I
had
went,
it
well,
do well?
hiring. If there's only one thing that I've done really, really well in business, and it's hire the right people, right? So if you do that, you don't have to do anything else well, right? That can be your only lane. Put the right people in place to do the right job, and then you just like
Let them do their thing.
let them
Is
do the
there
job,
is there a
right?
magic, like a little secret formula to finding the right person from your perspective?
I think there is. It's funny because when I'm hiring, the process kind of goes, usually people reach out by email at first. So you look at their resume and you're like, yeah, okay, fine, that's great. But then I phone them and I have a conversation with them. And I don't bring up anything about physio. I just talk about them as people. And then if they pass that and they seem like a good conversation, because of course physio, you're dealing with people and you're representing the company, and it's so many personal relationships that you're building your professional relationship on. It's important to be a good person and be able to have those relationships. So then I bring them in for an interview, and in that first interview I almost talk nothing about physio, right? again, I talk where they're from and their family and who they are and what they do, and not that there's an expectation that they have to be this certain way, but I just want to hear how they talk about themselves, right, and their lives, and so that now you got an idea of who they are and what their character is, right, and then the next interview is about them as physios, right, and by that point I already know that I want them or don't want them, because really the bar, I mean, you have your, you know, I've already looked at the resume. I know what their physio experience is. I already know if they've kind of met that bar or not, right? But then, so it's more that person, and do they fit? Does their personality fit? And are they going to be, are they going to be able to be a good ambassador and a good representative of the company?
Yeah, totally.
Right? And then those people, like, get it. I don't think you're ever going to get somebody that cares as much as ownership cares, right? Although I would argue that I have a few of those people in my business that care as much as I do, and have that pride in the business, which is really hard to come by, and is I'm blessed to have people that have that. But
Well, I think it's a combination
yeah.
of your willingness to instill a level of trust in them, confidence that they've got this, and that you can do what needs to be done, along with the the variable of the human to human interaction, uh, the the enabling of someone to grow beyond what they are capable of, and that is this is a safe space to do that work. When we find the place where we're allowed to expand and grow and be who we are at the same time, we'll likely not want to leave. I don't know of in my career, uh, I've yet to have found a place where both of those were authentically available. They might have been stated, right, expressed as a potential, but not really experienced. And so there was always a reservation over here. It's like, I just don't know if I can go all in over here. I don't know if they really believe that or not. But when that's there, they're in, and everything, all of their energy, not all of their energy, but in terms of the work to be done, they're vested, right? They would not want to be anywhere else.
I agree. I think that's a big part of it. I think you do have to show them that you're there to support them, and if they need something, you're there to support them. I think they need to have a fair pay, right? I don't think anybody wants to work for free, but I don't think that's necessarily the biggest motivator. I think it has to be, certainly has to be fair. But I think when you show faith in them and you're like, listen, go do your thing. I love what you do. I think you do a great job of it. Keep doing it. Um, Take on more if you want to take on more. I'd love you to take on more. And I think that's a big part of it. I don't think you give that away without them earning it
100%.
either, right? Nobody gets
Yeah.
that for free because they are representing your company, and it is a big deal, and it means a lot to me, and I have a lot of pride in it. But I've been willing to watch, you know, slowly me be 90% of that business to me being 20% of that business over the years, and that's great. That's awesome. That's exactly
Yeah.
what I want.
So let's talk a little bit about brewery, alcohol, beer. Um, what's your position on alcohol? You took a year off to support someone in your life that needed to quit. You mentioned that earlier. And then after the year, something happened. Uh, let's talk a little bit about that. Let's go back to that first question about what's your position on alcohol. So what happened after the year?
Yeah. Well, in all honesty, it was really I like, first off, I have no judgments against people or the drinking culture. I have I think that the vast majority of people that I know drink, and they drink responsibly, and they have fun with it, and they use it in certain situations, or they and it's fine, and they're healthy with it. Um, my year after my year, I just looked at the pros and the cons, and I still miss it. There's still times when I'm like, this would be funnier if I had had a few beers in me, right? Because I'm not quite there, right? So it's different for sure. But it strictly came down to life without it was better than life with it for me. And I don't, I really, I really hesitate from being an anti-drinking guy. Like I don't drink. I own a non-alcoholic brewing company. I do better when people don't want to drink alcohol, but I'm not negative on it whatsoever. I think there's a lot of like, even in talking with my kids all, they're 17, 19, and 21 now. They all go out and have a few beers and do the thing, right? They all drink and they do it responsibly and they've learned how to do it. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I haven't necessarily discouraged it and said, look at me, I don't drink, you
Right.
don't have to drink. I think it's a choice that they have to make, and they have to find out the responsible way to do it for themselves. And I think, it, I think it's okay. And I don't think it's necessarily, I'm not
Yeah.
down on it. There is this side of me that sees the negative impact of it a lot, and a lot of people open up and talk to me about the negative impact alcohol's had on them, because of course it's a safe place with a non-alcoholic brewer, right? um, and it is scary. It is scary, the negative impact that alcohol can have on some people's lives if it's not managed well, or if they can't manage it well, right? So it is sometimes it's hard to not look at it for what it really is, which is a poison, and it can be really hard and toxic on some people's lives. So, um, but I always stop short of saying that all alcohol is negative and bad and poor. And I look back on my university days, and a lot of those awesome stories start off with, we were so drunk this night and this
Totally.
happened. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I got some great stories. My friends would roll their eyes if I only talked about how bad
Totally.
alcohol was. We had some great times that started off like
Well,
that. So,
let's talk a little bit about
um,
that. Let's talk about the people dynamic, the dynamic of people with alcohol, and where we're at right now in society. Do you, do you think we're becoming more closed off and less social, given the variables that we are experiencing in the world? Well, let's start there. Do you have a sense of, or an impression, an opinion of that?
well, I think there is a tendency, and we see it. Like, people are more online, or they're more spending time like that, and it, my kids are sick of it. But it's always like that. Like, my summer always included, get up, get on your bike, go to buddy's house, hang out in the park, go to the confectionery, buy a Slurpee, steal a pack of gum,
I can't
go.
relate
You
to
know what I
that at
mean?
all.
Like, and it was always out and doing and being and experiencing. And now it's like, now it's so much is online and scrolling and doing, and that's everybody. That's me too, right? So I do think there is that tendency to be a little bit less out there and a little bit less social.
How much do you
Um,
think
and
alcohol, the consumption of alcohol, defines our relationships?
I think no more than it ever did. Like, I talk about, um, so many stories that started off with that night we were drinking, or that night we were drunk, or whatever. It was plenty of my youth was defined by partying and doing and drinking and whatever. I don't know that it's changed that much. I think what's changed is the openness, and the that it's okay to not drink. Like, this is what I talk about with my kids. I said, because there's they're way smarter than we were. Like, than we, being me and my friends. I mean, there were times I got into cars when people had been drinking and they were driving, and we made some stupid choices back then, for sure. And they're way smarter now than they used to be. And so when they have people over before they go out or whatever, and there's always one or two, or certainly a driver, but then often others that aren't drinking, and they know that, like, I got a garage full of beer, go for it, like, help yourself, right? um, and I always say, like, there's no way that when I was 20 years old I was showing up to a party with non-alcoholic beer. I never would have had the confidence to do that, and it would have been totally shunned, right? And I think that's more acceptable now, and that's what's
Hmm.
changing more than
Yeah.
anything else.
So I hear you're a
But I
Riders
don't know
fan.
that I'm.
I don't follow sports, so you're not going to get any sort of shaming from me in any capacity. But what I did want to talk about is the connection to drinking and sports. Just touch on a little bit,
Yeah.
and why you think they're so synonymous one another, and how we balance the recreational activity of drinking with the need of the body. So there's a lot of questions there, but what do you think the connection to
Yeah.
drinking and sports is in your experience?
I think it's just an adult Slurpee, isn't it? Isn't it like you go play hockey or whatever, and it's like, hey, you got a great game, let's go for a Slurpee, right? And so now it's like, well, you go do something athletic, like even and I don't know, it goes hand in hand. Like I go for a bike ride, and we always bring beer to the parking lot to have a beer after, right? You go play hockey, we always have beer in the dressing room after. We have, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know the connection or why, but I think is it a reward for a job well done or a good effort, or is it just um, I don't know. I think so. Or is it cheersing that the moment and the time, and the appreciation of that? Because I mean, what's better than sports and athletics and activities with people? Like, it's great. That's what it's all about. That's like favorite moments in life right there, right? So, is it cheersing that? I don't know. It's great. I love it
Right.
though.
A great question, because it
Yeah.
likely means very different things for everybody, right? Now,
Mhm.
how do we balance then the recreation of drinking with the needs of the body? Because there is that variable that many of us are not really accounting for.
Yeah. Um, Maybe that's why I'm here. Like either you know that when it's appropriate to drink and when it's not appropriate to drink, when your body can take it, when your environment allows it, um, because you know your performance is going to be reduced after consuming alcohol. So either you've made those good choices, or maybe that's what I'm here for. Because if you need to have drink beer on your way to work in the morning, maybe you should drink mine and not the one with alcohol in it,
Right.
right? I don't know. I think it's a personal choice and a personal responsibility of people to know and understand those limitations and and what's reasonable and unreasonable. And those that don't do well at those choices are probably not going to do well in a lot of areas, right? So maybe that's what I'm here for. Maybe that's what all those good non-alcoholic beers that are out now are here for, right?
We're dealing with a lot in today's world. I would wager more different, complicated, confusing than ever before in our existence as human being, because we are pursuing new things that we've never done before. There's new variables that we've never had to account for before, and we will continue to keep going. So, in dealing with a lot in today's world, what advice or direction would you give what we like to call the modern warriors of today?
Interesting question. I think it's all, first off, like I think we are dealing with a lot. Don't get me wrong. I think there's a lot going on. But isn't that just relative to where you are? Like I don't know that if you look back in the 60s or the 50s or the 40s or the dirty 30s, they were all dealing with a lot. They all had their own things to deal with. And I think we look back and think that we're dealing with more, but at the time, they had their plate full, right? So they were all dealing with whatever they had at the time. So I don't know. Is it more than ever? I don't know. It's a good question. Um, and then I think my answer to how do you do it? I think you focus on what you can control. Like here's the coach coming out of me, but it's like you can control your effort and you can control your decision making, and you can control what you're doing right now. And that's all you can really control. The rest you're going to react to, and you're going to have to respond to what's put on your plate. But like, all you can control is what's there, right? You can't control results. You can't control how things end up. You can't control what comes at you. You can only control your response to it, and your effort, and your decision making, and your response to it, and your effort. And you can control what's going on right now. That's it. Like, but that's totally the coach in me. Like, that's my big thing, is that you can control, how you prepare for your next shift and what you do on your next shift. That's it. That's it, and that's all. And then you come in and you evaluate, how was that? How did I do? What do I have to change? And then where are we at? Be prepared as you go out for what the scenario is for the next shift.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Well said.
So it's no different than life, I guess.
100%. That's the podcast, man. So I probably have a bunch of questions, but I'm looking at the time, and we've gone through a really great roller coaster, and so I thank you for entertaining the conversation.
You brought me to tears a few times. I had to fight back. I was like almost uncomfortable.
Nice. That was the idea.
In a good way, though. Not in a bad way, in a good way. But that was like I'm not sure I was prepared for this. Not sure if I was prepared for that. And I think I did and as I reflect on the thing that I filled out for you, I probably should have expected it, but I think it was quite a while ago, and I kind of forgot what I was getting into here.
Yeah.
So,
Would it have made a difference for me to give that back to you as a point of reference for you to remember what you shared, or?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it was pretty authentic in my answers, and it probably reflect the same as what I'm saying now. Uh, but you're kind of coming up with it new again. But I think it's good. It's not a negative. It's not bad. I had a friend commit suicide about a year and a half ago, and man, what a reflection on life that you just got to. You got to be authentic in what you do and within your relationships and stuff. And I think talking is good. Talking's important. I talked about the buddy that I just talked to this morning. I wasn't lying. Who told me that he got divorced, or his wife asked for a divorce. And it's like, holy man. And so like, I had another meeting, and I had to like text, like, I'm going to be late for this. I got to talk to this guy. And yeah, it's important. Talking's important. And these conversations are important. It doesn't mean I would have liked to be more ready for it, but that's me.
I don't know if you'd ever have been truly ready for the conversation.
Probably not. But I was like, oh, clear your eyes, Graham. Don't look like you're about to cry.
Well,
yeah. But I'm a crier. People that know me know that. So I'm a hugger. I'm a crier.
nice.
It's okay.
Amazing. Well, thank you for being gracious with your story and your time, and I'll keep you posted on the progress of the producing of this piece. We'll give it to you as a way in a way for you to be able to share it within your network as well, should that be something that you do or want to do. And we'll keep the conversation going. It was truly a pleasure, Graham, to get to know you and get to know your story. And I suspect we will probably be crossing paths again. Are you in Calgary? Yeah.
I'm in Calgary. Yeah. Not right now, but yes.
Really great.
I live in Calgary.
So I am also in Calgary. And there was actually one thing that I'd be curious about. And maybe it's the first segue into something else. So you have creative pursuits, namely playing guitar. And I've always wanted to learn how to play guitar. I have a guitar. I've been trying to like convince my son to like, it's like a vicarious thing. It's a bit weird. It's like, David, just if you want to learn, just fucking learn the guitar, dude. And so maybe there's an opportunity for me to learn the guitar and have you kind of share with me. I don't know where you're at in that, but share with me something that might actually have it be something that's consistent in my world as well. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what. Here's the first thing to do I'm looking at your age. You must be a tragically hip.
I do enjoy Tragically Hip, yes.
Okay. So Wheat Kings is the easiest song
Okay.
to play. And if you and just think about the strumming pattern. There's only three chords. So it's from a chord progression standpoint, it's good because you only got to learn three chords, right? And then just think about and listen to the strumming pattern and just try and replicate the strumming pattern. It won't sound at all like it's supposed to at the beginning, but think about the strumming pattern. The chord, everyone thinks guitar is about where do I put my fingers to make
Right.
this sound, right? But that's not it. That's like the easy part that comes and you just figure out and you just do, right? It's actually your strumming hand, and it's that strumming pattern that makes the
Okay, cool.
music, right? So and it's like dun, 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 like it's such a it's a very obvious strumming pattern. But listen to it and try and
Okay.
learn that song. Because once you learn that song, you're like, oh my God, I can do a song. Now singing to it is difficult
Oh, I'm
while you
sure.
play it because it actually it's on the half strum where they change the line, so it's kind of a difficult thing to do. But playing it is like that's the first one. I always tell people go learn that song, and then you're gonna be like hooked because you're like I know this awesome song and I can actually play it really good. And I don't know how people make millions of dollars playing this because it's really fucking easy.
Because there's so many that won't,
Which
is really what it comes down to.
it's true.
They don't know what they don't know.
So learn that song, and then I'll give you some more. But yeah, that's a good
Amazing.
starting point
Appreciate
for
that.
sure.
All right, man. Well, we'll call it here. Enjoy the rest of your Friday, and
Awesome,
we'll be in touch.
appreciate it, man.
Okay. We'll
It's
talk to
great.
you later.
Love what
Yeah.
you do. Good
Thanks.
job. Bye bye.
We think, more often than not, that we don't have what it takes, that we need more in order to achieve success. We live with an ongoing narrative that plays on a loop that can prevent us from seeing the truth, that we have everything we need. And the first step is understanding that and then embracing what is important to us and to those around us. Graham is an example of what happens when you lean into who you know yourself to be and then do the work that works for you. A commitment to be of service to someone he loves just because turned into a new way of being for himself that opened up the space for his creative genius to explore and create, that had a resonance with others, even if their reasons for why were different, that turned into something bigger and more valuable for more people that became his new focus. This is not a formula for success. This is a blueprint of what persistence to pursue life with purpose looks like.